Hafa students, I am Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. You all have been through a year of big changes. We've had to adapt and make big changes to keep our families and our island safe. But with change comes opportunity and a chance to try new things like PBS University. While Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and I will continue to do our part to keep our island safe, you students have a part to play as well. Your part is to keep learning and to keep up with your lessons. That's why I am happy to see you here ready to learn with PBS University. PBS University is a way to bring a continuous educational curriculum to you while you stay safe at home during this time. To help you keep up with your studies, we asked our friends at PBS Guam and the Guam Department of Education to put together this episode. Thank you for doing your part and have a great lesson.
Humanities Guahan, an independent nonprofit organization affiliated with the National Endowment for the Humanities, is dedicated to promoting public humanities programming for the people of Guam and providing foundational support and educational resources for our island community. For more information about Humanities Guahan, visit www.humanitiesguahan.org. The following sessions were part of Humanities Guahan's Art Plus Ideas program, a series of virtual workshops exploring the intersection of the creative arts and the humanities, and meant to engage the Guahan community around important and timely topics relevant to the region. The Golai Culinary Workshop took place in March 2020 and was also followed by a live virtual session with the artists and workshop participants via Zoom, which included additional discussions and demonstrations that highlighted the healing properties of food, the importance of supporting sustainable and ethical food systems, and the relationship between food and culture.
So the whole mission of providing access for the people of Guam to healthier options in terms of plant-based food system. Literally, how can we connect? How can we connect the people to this kind of lifestyle? Because it is a lifestyle when you choose to eat more plants, right? Because you have to incorporate, if you want to eat more plants, well, you have to do more things in your life so that you have access to plants. And so we're just one of those access to whole food plant-based. And to connect the people, you have to take these raw ingredients and create something that they can connect with, right? And the first thing they connect with is, of course, the local ingredients, right? And so we have a recipe that includes a majority of the vegetables in it is locally sourced. And that will include the local squash and local frijoles, right? We have taro, fresh local taro, jackfruit. Even the red onion is locally sourced, from the tips to the actual bulb, right, that we incorporate. And of course, every plant has a protein component to it, right? But we're always so focused on the quality of the protein. And so since we're whole food plant-based, we've supplemented with protein sources that are available at your market. And it's Beyond Meat, right? Which is a very phenomenal product out there that can help connect a person that's doing the transition from a SAD diet, which is a standard American diet, right? To a whole food plant-based. And this is one of the transition components that we have, that we use in order to connect people to eating more plants. And then also and also these are both non-GMO, which is something that we emphasize when we choose our ingredients. And so it's not genetically modified. And this protein source here is a non-GMO soy protein source, which mimics the texture of chicken, right? Let's see what else goes into this component. So many things, and they're not all here. We have a local cabbage, right? I accidentally threw in some zucchini. My bad. And what else is in here? I told you jackfruit. So that's pretty much what we have, here today, as well as even the sweet potato. The orange sweet potato is locally sourced, and we've also incorporated some squash blossoms in the recipe. And as well as some cigarizas and some taro leaves. And I think that's about it. Like any kind of concept of, for those that know the concept of shepherd's pie or a savory kind of pot pie, what was the other thing? The chickenella king component. It's that sort of creamy, comfy, cozy gravy filled with all these local vegetables that we just mentioned, with the heartiness from the Beyond Meat as well as the Mindful Chicken product, right? And so everything comes together in a beautiful gravy, right? And with maybe a little bit of coconut milk as well, or cream, just to add a little bit of sweetness, but not taking, we're not building an a la king kind of thing. So we have sort of like a white gravy with that thyme and oregano components, all encompassing and blanketing all these delicious prepped ingredients. And you just take it for what it is. And we also incorporated mushrooms, which is not local, but it is organic. And that's kind of like the hierarchy of things that we do here in the island of Guam, is we've given so many choices. We can use we have to go to all those different choices to create our food system, right? Go to the market, go to the farmers, go to the local grocery store, and so your back door. So with that being said, it's your basic stir fry, and I'm going to take a wok, and I'm going to be cooking for a standard of like your small family. 2 to 4 people, right? And so you would probably want half a pound of the Beyond Meat product, and maybe about, I would say, a half a cup of Mindful Chicken, right? And there's no rules to this. It's what you have in your refrigerator. It's what you have on hand. You can use any kind of vegetables. We decided that this will be a sustainable, locally sourced recipe to share with the Guam Humanities viewers, right? And so just like in any stir fry, you get your pan heated up and keep all plastic components away from the heat because it will melt. And just enough oil to get things all started. And I don't like measuring things, but I do with big recipes because I'll be standing there tasting all day, right? And Tawny's really good about standardizing. Thank you, Tawny girl. And so I always eyeball it. This to me is about, maybe 5 cloves minced. Use your judgment. If you don't like garlic, you don't have to use it. You can use coconut oil. You can use, I don't like to use soy oil. I like to use coconut oil, a mixture of olive oil as well. That's pretty much, and sesame oil with the Korean Asian components that we like to use. And you just take the garlic and you just saute it, your standard sauteing. And that's the one thing that we're going to be doing. Sorry about that. That's the one thing we're going to be doing here at the shop, is offering, hopefully one day when things get as normal as we can get to normal, or look what the new normalcy is. We like to be, part of our mission is to offer workshops, right? Okay, and you never really you don't want to intentionally burn, or you don't want to burn garlic unintentionally. Intentionally is good if you want a roasty kind of flavor. And I'll put a little ginger, right, as well. And just a little bit of ginger. Ginger is always really nice. But we're not going with a whole ginger component. And you stir everything pretty much together. Get the meat all started. Until it's all nice and cooked. And what I like to do with these layers is actually cook each vegetable by itself, right? But that's not necessary. That's just my method. And so, and very commonly used here and learned from our team members, right? Because each vegetable has a certain point that and duration to cook to get it to where it's still al dente, right? And not mushy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with these. After this is cooked, I'm going to put it in a bowl. It's on, and I'm going to ultimately just get everything mixed together. Get some room there. And you want to add onions? Add onions. Yeah, we have some onions, and we're going to add. It hasn't been added to our dish. If you don't want onions, don't add onions. Some people are crybabies about onions. Literally. I'm a crybaby. I always cry every time I cut onions. Some stronger than others. Because this is kind of like a savory stew, right? You kind of want things to fit on a spoon or a fork. You don't want too much of a big chunk, right? At least that's my thinking, right? And so since I'm the cook, I'm in charge. Okay. So with that being said, just be mindful about the way you want your textures to come together as you spoon it onto your mouth. Okay. And that's fine, because, you know, it's going to cook for about 20 minutes, you know, in a temperature of about 425 or so. So everything can meld together. You get something like this, or frijoles. Let's get some frijoles in there. And again, the amount, eyeball it. Maybe take a half a cup, a quarter cup of frijoles, more or less. You don't want to overcook it. You just want to blanch it because it's going to obtain heat and cook some more in the baking process of this wonderful camuti ranchera. We'll call it a ranchera. Camuti Manyetlu pie. That's what we'll call it. And taro, you know, it was up there. I'm like, yeah, that's going to be a good component. I love taro. We don't get access to taro outside the local food stands and the neighbor, you know, down the street, or Uncle Roki, you know, growing in Malesu, you know. If you don't know people and you don't know about the market, it's not something you would commonly find at Payless, right? And so every time I go up there, I'm just so reminded of the beauty of taro and taking it to more than just the traditional stuff, right? You can utilize it traditional, meaning like our golai hug and suni, right? Which is wonderful. I love it. You can incorporate it in daily meals that you would maybe use celery for, maybe try to replace it with some taro stems, right? That's what I love about cooking. There's just, you know, there are parameters given, right? But there's so many things that you can, there's no right or wrong. It's just different, you know? Yeah, you can burn things, and yes, things taste terrible. But even that, you know, something that can be burnt is somebody else's, like, joy. Like, burnt rice can be turned into Korean rice chips, right? Right? And not thrown away. And even with the squash, you don't want to overcook it. You just want to give it a little nice sear. And if you don't want to do that individually, then don't do it. Just fuck everything together, you know? Amazing stuff at different stages. Young stage, use it in curries, use it in dishes like this, use it in this is the young jackfruit. And I love the ripe jackfruit as well. We take young jackfruit and harvest it and get it down to, you know, its ingredient, and we take it and slowly, for like, gosh, 3 hours, slowly in a slow oven for 3 hours, just basting in a Mexican traditional marinade, right? Okay, and so you take everything like this, and then you want to create a gravy. If you have a favorite gravy, hallelujah. We have a gravy that we've used for a recipe, and instead of throwing it out, we're going to add it to this. And that's one thing that we promote here, is that that's reusing components and lessening the food waste, right? Because there's a lot of food waste that ends up in the landfill. So one of the ways we can reduce as a community is to reduce our food waste. And so instead of it, going bad or going, just going bad or going into the system, we reuse it until there is no more. So we're going to do that. And so just use your standard gravy. Go on the internet and Google it, standard gravy, standard brown gravy, standard traditional gravy. It's your basic, 1 cup of flour to water. You want to go ahead and eye it and let the flour and the salt and the seasonings all come together and thicken like a gravy. That's your basic gravy kind of recipe. And we've pretty much taken that and added mushrooms and thyme, Tawny Girl, and oregano, your traditional kind of savory, shiitake broth, and the house shiitake broth, which gives again that umami, which once would be thrown away, we try to reuse and close that cycle, right? We do everything that we can. We're not perfect, but we try, right? And so with that being said, you take everything and you mix it all up. We have some, gravy already made. And for those that really want this gravy recipe, you can make the request, and we're happy to give you down to, a very 1 cup portion of the flour and make it from there. And then, they can have access to that. We'd be happy to give them the recipe. And it's really thick, right? And you want this to be not soupy, but definitely like stew-like, right? And you have this really hearty, savory, fresh umami dish. And like I said, because of the gravy and because of the creaminess and the savoriness, again, this is in the comfort food category, and this is taking local ingredients and connecting it with the local people and what's available, and then connecting them to something. You can even go to Naktak if you want, right? So there's no rules to this, but since we have this delicious savory brown gravy, we decided to go and more on what one would probably, traditionally, like I said earlier, call it a pot pie. So kind of like that concept, that chicken pot pie concept, using locally sourced vegetables and with a delicious locally sourced sweet potato mash on top, and placed in the oven for about 20 minutes, right, at 400 degrees. And we've even tossed some squash blossoms in the layer as well. Okay, so you want to get this, and then you get your pan, depending on how much you're cooking or how many people you're cooking for. Again, this could probably feed about anywhere from 2 people if you eat really, if you're a hearty eater, but 4 people as a side. And you would dump everything in a pan. You can use a cast iron pan, you can use a cake pan, You could use a bread pan, but you want something you want the size of the pan, the depth of the pan, to be enough to fill what you've cooked, but also leave room for the little bit of gravy. Oops, sorry about that. Sometimes you have mortality, right? And so with that being said, you kind of fit it in there. And so there you go. The sauce and the the ingredients are placed together, and we're going to take, this is the kamuti mash, and once you mash it up, add all the ingredients, you have this delicious mash that I do. What I do is just take it into a scooper like this, and then ultimately connect the dots together, or the gaps together. Doesn't that look pretty already? Okay, and I gotta say, you know, as far as flavor goes, and I'm not sure what variety of sweet potatoes this is, but it's definitely grown local, because I spoke to the local food grower, and it's freaking phenomenal. It's really creamy, much creamier, and doesn't absorb water the way the imported ones do, and it maintains a really nice creamy texture. I'm like, sweet potato pie sounds really good about now, in terms of creating one with these local sweet potatoes. There we go. And you just kind of connect it together, right? And you preheat your oven at 400 degrees. When it's ready, you pop it in and you bake it. Ooh, I forgot to put the layers of flours. Anyways, so I would take the flours, nip it at the base, and just place a star pattern right at the top of the stew topping. Okay, and so this the first pie I did has the squash blossoms, and so then I place the mash kamuti on top. And I also, one of the things that I love about making mash, if I'm making lemai mash or kamuti mash or Yukon potato mash, whatever's available, I love using, of course, the key ingredient is coconut milk. For me, at least. Okay, so basically that's it. And then you place it in a oven at 400 degrees, and voila.
The Art Plus Ideas workshops can be viewed on Humanities Guahan's YouTube channel or accessed on Humanities Guahan's website at www.humanitiesguahan.org.
Hafa students, I'm Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. For more than a year now, you all have continued to wash your hands and watch your distance from others, and you've done a really great job wearing your masks. We know your parents and guardians have helped you to make these changes to keep yourself and your community safe. As Governor Leon Guerrero said, we are happy you are here. We want you to continue to learn and sharpen your skills with the help of PBS University. This program is the result of a collaborative effort. We couldn't do it alone. I'd like to thank the teachers and support staff of the Guam Department of Education and PBS Guam for their work and their commitment to our students. I'd also like to thank you students for participating at home. To your parents, I'd like to thank you for taking an active role in your child's education. we are all eager to return to a time when all of us can share and study together in person. Until then, we hope you learned something new from this PBS University instruction.